I've seen you quoted as saying J.P. Morgan said that millionaires don't have astrologers, but billionaires do. What did he know, Arch, that the rest of us are oblivious to?
Well, he had a full-time astrologer on staff. That was Evangeline Adams. And I just visited the Morgan Library on 36th Street in New York in May, and around the top of his library are the symbols from the zodiac. Now, I thought it was going to be a clear zodiacal thing around the top, but it's not. It's much more subtle than that, but there are symbols there from each of the signs.
As I understand it, he had quite a collection, one of the world's largest artwork and other related paraphernalia. Did you see any other astrological or market-related things of that nature?
No, but they do have several major collections there, which you can call up and check out or look online, and they'll have descriptions.
That's a good segue, I think, into the Bradley model. Market timers seem to like this methodology. In 1948, Donald A. Bradley wrote a pamphlet titled Stock Market Prediction, and it describes a methodology for creating a model of general stock market possibilities. And I think you'd probably agree with the statement, although maybe not, that it's most coveted as a market turning point indicator. Looking at the chart here, a turning point scheduled for next month. Have you seen this?
Well, you think it's a big turn in the Bradley model. I've been watching the planetary movements since '63, and I read about them on the front page of the Wall Street Journal while I was a technical analyst at Merrill Lynch. I was young and impressionable, and I decided to look into it, and the material that was around was mostly, if this, then that kind of thing, and I just wanted to know, what is the average percent change in the Dow on all of these astronomic events? So I actually calculated them before we had computers. Of course, the computers calculate, I was doing every 15 degrees or 30 degrees, and now you hit the button on the computer, it'll do every degree. That's been the input that I have now. The Bradley model is made up of every planetary aspect to every other. In other words, a relationship in planetary longitude only. It does not have declinations except for Mars and Venus. It doesn't have heliocentric. It doesn't have pay its special attention to eclipses and full moons and new moons, which are very important in market timing. But it is quite a credible tool, and when it does things, you should pay attention. You shouldn't bet the farm on that alone. I always back it up with like 28 technical market indicators. But it's actually a measure of planetary energy that's hitting the Earth, and of course it will affect markets along with everything else.
Do you see any relative market significance between July and August?
Well, it's July 30th to August 3rd is the largest, most powerful, most transformative, most difficult aspects among the planets in all of recorded history. Thinking about the markets, I'm saying if the poles flip, we're all dead. If it's only a nuclear war, then only half of us will. But I'm hoping that the system doesn't melt down and I get paid for my puts.
So I was looking at another graph going back to 1950. So I guess 50, 60 years worth of data on the Bradley. And it did show the biggest swing, if you will, and I'm probably not using the right term, but nadir in the Bradley model in over 50 years.
It does a credible job of direction as well. Some people say it doesn't, but it does. It's just sometimes you get these inversions so that a bottom will be a top in the market or a top will be a bottom in the market. And that does happen, but it happens less, around maybe a quarter of the time or less.
Are you interested in trying a little scrying here or tea leaf reading and giving folks your guesstimation as to what this could be leading up to?
Well, it's the biggest thing we've ever seen. So that includes World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, the plague, and the fall of Rome. So somewhere along in there.
When we listen to a lot of these prognosticators outside of the markets, they all seem to be pointing towards 2012 as the big year. Not a lot of devastation forecast for 2010. You were interviewed on Forbes. You pointed out that you saw Saddam Hussein being activated.
What I said was this is one of the worst days of the century. There will be coercion, the use of force, a large explosion, and heartlessness or cruelty August the 2nd to the 7th. And on August the 2nd, Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait unexpectedly. Now, that quotation was in Barron's.
But would you be expecting negative or positive things to unfold in the market according to this analysis?
Well, I have a broken dichotomy here in that the Bradley model goes down to that date and hits a new low there was a colleague in Vienna calculated the Bradley model back 200 years, and he said it makes a new low for the 200 years this summer. But I wrote an article about the Mars-Uranus crash cycle, where every crash that has occurred in the last 100 years has occurred in the same wide area of the Mars-Uranus crash cycle, 40% of that cycle. So it's not a pinpointer, but if it's going to crash, it will crash in that period, and that period begins on this alignment and goes forward to about the end of March of 11. The Mars-Uranus cycle goes up to this date, the date of the large alignment, and then crashes afterwards, sometime between July 30th and the end of March of 2011. Now, I have called it closer than that in the newsletter. I have said that from this alignment, give 3 months on either side, the market will crash sometime between May the 1st and November the 1st. We've already had, after May 1st, we had the flash crash, which already fulfills the minimum commitment of that. But I think it's going to be much worse after, when we get the Mars-Uranus crash cycle involved, as well as the seasonal patterns and all that kind of thing thrown in together.
Interesting. Well, you have a lot of company in agreement there with you, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Well, I came across a discussion that you had, and in this interview, you talk about being drafted in the Vietnam War in 1966 and assigned to the Phoenix program. This was a CIA program that was intended to eliminate certain leaders in the region there. And I wonder if...
Well, specifically, they had just started this Phoenix program, and they didn't have enough intelligence officers to fill it out, so they took my entire officers candidate school class, most of them artillery officers in the Army. They took us to Fort Holabird, Maryland, in the middle of Baltimore, for intelligence school, and they were giving us regular intelligence classes, good background on intelligence. We said, why are we doing this? What are we doing here? Why have you grabbed us off of our Army assignments? And they said, we can't tell you. It's top secret. So we were into the program several weeks, and a week or two before it ended, the whole story came out on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, whose idea it was, who was committed to it, who was funding it, the whole thing with the CIA. 3 of my best friends went conscientious objector the next day. The New York Times called me when I got home, and I did not want to talk to them that early, but I did not speak. Not something I would have chosen to do, but my family is patriotic, and I would not have ducked out of it either. One of the interesting things is that came across the desk was that was marked top secret was that 96% of the Viet Cong income in cash came from 6 French and American firms, which was basically payoffs to keep from their stuff from being destroyed. For instance, Michelin Tire, the Viet Cong could hit and then run into the Michelin plantation, and we couldn't follow them in there because if we destroyed a tree, we had to pay Michelin for it. The U.S. government had to pay Michelin, but Michelin was paying the Viet Cong not to destroy them. And Shell Oil, the trucks went all over the country and never got blown up.
A lot of side deals going on there.
Well, I think that's what wars are for. You think the primary reason may be something else. I think one of the primary reasons was offshore oil.
I've never heard that as a possible explanation for our involvement in the Vietnam conflict.
Well, you can go online now and find out who's pumping how much, but it's never mentioned in the newspapers here.
I want to also talk about a book that you've mentioned in the past, The Bourse of Babylon. It discusses how astrology related to the price of wheat from 463 BC to 72 BC, and that hundreds of years of data was actually kept.
It was usually, I think, probably month end, which means new moon or full moon, I don't know which, but it was 6 commodities and metals with the price for 500 years. This is a fairly new book about it in the last 10 or 12 years.
Do you think some of those clay tablets are still available?
Well, they're available to, serious researchers in a